What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. Today for you, I've got UFC 293 matchmaking. We're doing all the fighters you see in front of you. You've got Carlos Ulberg, Tyson Pedro, Justin Tafa, Felipe dos Santos, Manel Kape, Tai Tuivasa, Alexander Volkov, Israel Adesanya, and the new middleweight champion, Sean Strickland, which is wild to say, but here we are. It was a fantastic performance. If you want to see me talk about it a little more on the other fights, go check out the recap I posted yesterday. But let's get into it. First fighter up, Carlos Ulberg. He had a pretty, no, it wasn't anything insane, but a pretty solid performance over Dawoon Jung. There's never a moment where I really thought it was like a back and forth fight or he was going to lose possibly. He hurt Dawoon Jung a few times, dropped him once, and then we thought it was going to decision, but they ended up showing us on the replay that there was a tap at the end when Carlos Ulberg had that rear naked choke sunk in. So he ended up getting it changed to a submission with like 11 seconds left or 10 seconds left on the clock. And I thought there was a chance he was going to be in the rankings come Tuesday morning, but he wasn't, which I also think is fine. It was a toss-up. There are some solid guys at the bottom of that top 15. But regardless, I think he should be fighting in the top 15 in his next fight. And for that, we have two options. Obviously, who he called out in the cage, Dom Reyes. He's going to fight at some point here pretty soon, I assume. Either end of this year, maybe early next year. He wants to try and get back on track, I assume. So he is an option. That is one they could do. Or I believe, I don't know, not too many people seemed happy with that call out. There were some people that weren't too excited about it, so I thought I'd come up with another option too, just because there seemed to be quite a bit of backlash about it. I went with Alonzo Menafield, also in the rankings. He just beat Jimmy Crute. They had their rematch and he did get it done. So I think this would be a good first matchup for Carlos Ulberg in the rankings. If Alonzo Menafield wins, he would really like solidify his spot in the rankings. He would definitely get to fight up next. And Carlos Ulberg, that would just be the win to finally break him into the rankings. And I think either fight is doable for him, but both fights would be pretty good matchups. Next up, Tyson Pedro absolutely torched Anton Turkalj. It was just a really great performance. There wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't a long fight. It was like a 2.5 minute fight, something like that. They were just throwing strikes at each other, and Tyson Pedro was able to land the big ones. That's really what everybody thought coming into this. If Turkalj was able to survive the first round and kind of wear on Pedro, maybe he could get in there and find the win. That's how I broke it down for Turkalj if he was going to win. But it was always about surviving that first, and he was not able to. Great work from Tyson Pedro to get it done. He is just coming off of a loss, I believe, to Modestas Bukauskas. It was a unanimous decision loss to Modestas Bukauskas. Now, he beats Turkalj. He probably needs one more fight around this level before he bounces back and starts to get fights right outside the rankings where he could possibly get into the rankings. And somebody who just lost not too long ago, Marcin Prachnio. I think it's kind of, for Tyson Pedro, really just the next step. He wants to try and get a win streak back, put a win streak together, so he can start looking back towards the rankings. And same for Prachnio. He's coming off of a loss, so he needs a bounce back fight. I just think this one kind of matches up at the moment. Maybe Tyson Pedro ends up fighting someone like technically not. I mean, there's not really rankings this low, but technically somebody you would assume would be higher ranked than Prachnio. But I mean, I feel like this is a good fight to kind of build a win streak for him, or for Prachnio to soil the party again and get back in the win column himself. Next up, Justin Tafa. He got his performance of the night bonus earning knockout over Austin Lane. They had a no contest from an eye poke in their first matchup in Jacksonville. We get the rematch over in Sydney, and Justin Tafa was able to get it done pretty quickly into the fight. I want to say it was like 2 minutes. It was just a solid performance from him overall. It's the heavyweight division, so there's not much you can really say. Tafa was able to clip him in an exchange pretty early into the fight, and he noticed that and sat down on a left overhand, which completely floored Austin Lane, and Taffa was able to finish with some brutal ground and pound to get Austin Lane out of there, earning himself that bonus, like I said. And with the big guys, it's kind of weird up in the heavyweight division. There's not a lot of depth, and there's not really a big pool of fighters in general. There's kind of, like, outside the rankings in other divisions, you kind of know who's above each other in the hierarchy. With the heavyweights, it's kind of just the guys in the rankings and the guys out, and the guys outside of the rankings just fight each other until they can build up a win streak, or some new guys come in and mix things up. And so kind of I just think the next fight you could make where guys haven't fought each other, we've got Justin Taffa versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. I believe that's a second knockout in a row for Justin Taffa, and Waldo Cortez Acosta is coming off of his first UFC finish over Lucas Bresky. It was a first-round knockout not too long ago. So I think this is just kind of the next step. If Taffa wins, it'll be 3 in a row for him. If Waldo Cortez Acosta can get it done, that will be the start of his new win streak. He'd be on 2 in a row, so hopefully he could keep building from there if he does get it done. But yeah, I think this is the next fight for the heavyweight division. And now we've got someone who definitely impressed, even in a loss, Felipe dos Santos. He was a guy who was supposed to have a Contender Series fight maybe 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago. His opponent pulled out. He still made weight. The UFC gives him an opportunity over in Sydney to fill in for Kai Kara-France and fight Manel Kape. He loses. It was a solid performance from Manel Kape in general. He was able to drop Felipe dos Santos once or twice and hurt him on a bunch of other occasions, but you know the shit to box guys. They're extremely tough. Felipe dos Santos, even in a loss, built some stock for sure, and people are definitely going to want to see him fight again. Obviously, he's not going to get a ranked fight again. The only time you've seen a guy get a ranked fight other than stepping in on their debut right after is Steve Erceg, but he was able to win stepping in his debut, which was also ridiculous. But Felipe dos Santos wasn't able to get it, so he'll definitely be fighting outside of the rankings, but he's not going to have to kind of start from the bottom like the Contender Series guys do, build all the way up. I think that performance earned him that, and somebody I think he can fight, Victor Altamirano. I think this would be a good matchup. He just lost. He's got 2 wins in the UFC, 2 losses as well, I believe. His last fight was a loss. He was trying to get into the rankings with a fight against Tim Elliott. So I think that's a solid matchup for Felipe here, a guy that's not too far down the rankings, just coming off of an attempt to get into the rankings. And we know how solid Felipe looked. I think this would be a fun matchup if Felipe wins for obvious reasons. That's a great first win in the UFC, coming off of that performance against Manel, and then beating a guy who just attempted to get into the rankings. And then if Victor Altamirano's able to get it done, I think that in the end would look like a solid victory for him, coming off of that Manel Kape performance. It would end up being a decent victory to build a new run off of for him. Next up, speaking of him, Manel Kape, who was able to, like I said, get that win over Felipe dos Santos, as he should have. There's not really much to say here. You go on and you make that matchup again, Kai Kara-France. I believe Manel Kape said he signed something already, or his management said he signed something already. These guys were talking back and forth after the fight, before the fight, in the press conference, even after the new match was made for Manel Kape. So I think you do have to reschedule this one. They can fight. They've got beef. It would be entertaining, and it's a sick fight anyway, so I would love to see it. But yeah, that one speaks for itself. You've got to redo this matchup, and hopefully they can get into the octagon to fight each other. Next up, Tai Tuivasa got choked out by Alexander Volkov in the second round from an Ezekiel choke. It was a solid performance from Volkov all around. Tai Tuivasa just really wasn't able to get anything going. Another guy coming off of a loss in the heavyweight division, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He wasn't able to beat Gelton Almeida, who's now fighting Curtis Blades in a really good spot, up near the title for sure. It's not a title eliminator, but a win would put him in a good spot for sure. Regardless, Jairzinho loses that fight to Almeida. Now we're here. I think these are just two guys coming off of a loss in the rankings. They're both, I can't remember what Tai is now. They might both be under 10, or maybe Tai is just a bit above 10. But just some lower ranked heavyweights. One of them will get, whoever wins can defend their rank from that spot against another ranked guy, or maybe fight somebody else who's coming off of a loss above them. And the loser would definitely have to fight outside the rankings, if they get pushed out of the rankings, obviously, or they would just have to defend their rank for sure against somebody coming up. But yeah, I think this is another one that kind of, the match makes itself. With the big guys, it's like I said, it's a little bit different because it's not too deep and there's not too many guys. But obviously, with Contender Series, Dana's trying to fix that. Next up, another heavyweight. This is a little bit different just because they're up at the top. Up at the top, there's more sense can be made of it, so you can actually kind of piece things together. Volkov coming off of that win over who we just spoke about, Tai Tuivasa. Good performance from him. Never really looked to be in too much danger against Tai Tuivasa, and was able to get that second round Ezekiel choke to secure the victory. What's next up for him, I think, is a matchup I was just speaking about. Blades versus Almeida. The winner will obviously go on and probably fight in a title or a number one contender spot. A number one contenders fight. That will probably be what the winner gets. The loser, I think, fights Volkov. It would just kind of be the next step up for Volkov, and it just makes sense with the other matchup as well. Winner fights up, gets like a number one contender fight, and loser fights down. It feels like it makes sense. And like I said, the pieces at the top of the heavyweight kind of fit. There's not much to do with John and Stipe fighting. You've got this matchup. You've got Tom Aspinall and Pavlovich waiting. This just makes sense. Next up, Israel Adesanya. There's the obvious thing you could go with, and people kind of seem to be torn. There's two sides to this, and I think it's like there's no middle. It seems you're either one or the other pretty passionately, I'd say. At least that's how it seems on Twitter. But a lot of people think Israel should get the immediate title shot. Dana included said it at the press conference after the post-fight press conference that he thinks it's the next fight to make. And a lot of people seem to disagree with that. I, in the moment after the fight, agreed with that. I thought we should run it back. But if you think about it, I saw a lot of people tweeting about it. I was talking with friends about it, obviously, too. And I think it does make more sense, as he's 1-2 in his last 3, 4-3 in his last 7. So it's not like he's on some big win streak right now that would warrant him an immediate rematch. It's not like it was a close fight, or it's not like he was winning and got clipped and knocked out like that Pereira fight. It's just not the same circumstances. He's coming off of a win to win the belt, so this would have been his first defense in the new run. He wasn't able to get it done, so I think, yeah, you kind of move on. With that, there's a fight coming up where the winner, I think, you have to do that fight for the title shot. So it makes the most sense. And obviously, you want to see Izzy get out there, fight different guys. And obviously, Paulo Costa is an option here. But it would just be a matchup we haven't seen in a minute. And obviously, I think Khamzat is the favorite at the moment. So I feel like that's the way most people are leaning right now. But yeah, I think this makes sense. Winner of that fight gets the Israel Adesanya fight. Izzy can take some time off. Obviously, it seems like he needs it. He's headlined so many shows so many shows in a solid little run here, a solid stretch without taking really a prolonged break. At least off the top of my head, it seems like he's been pretty consistent over the past years since he's taken the belt. 11 title fights in a row. And so yeah, that would be the matchup for the next title shot after this title fight, which is, I think, what you do next with Sean Strickland. You go Dricus du Plessis. It only makes sense. The Rob Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis fight in the moment was the title decider, the title contender fight, and everybody thought Israel Adesanya. Well, I won't say everybody. Most people thought Israel Adesanya, including myself, was going to come out here and wipe the floor with Sean Strickland, and then we were going to see the matchup people were waiting for: Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. But Sean Strickland goes out there and puts on a show and is able to get it done. against Israel Adesanya. You can't keep Dricus waiting. Like I said, it feels like at this moment Israel doesn't deserve the immediate title shot or the immediate rematch. So I think you do this with Dricus, throw Izzy in there with the winner of Khamzat Paulo, and we see what happens from there. But yeah, those are all the matchups I've got. This weekend we've got Noche UFC, Grasso versus Shevchenko 2 as the headliner for I believe it's the flyweight belt, 125 pounds. And yeah, I'll post this video tomorrow. Drop a like and subscribe. And yeah, see you guys tomorrow for the predictions video.